First, welcome to our guests and gentlemen that spoke to you earlier this morning. The presentation today, obviously, is with the Greenwich Historical Society, which was founded in 1931, present location in 1957. The purpose of the presentation today, and I'll do this briefly because it's much wider and more dimensions than I'm going to refer to here. They're going to refer to the campus redesign and goals that will significantly increase the Historical Society's service to the community per se. Through programs and expansion and enrichment will improve the facilities for collections and exhibitors on Greenwich Library and Coscob Art Colony. Will create a site that will be even more accessible to everyone, expand and restore facilities, and open up the campus for students and upgrade the spaces in which we preserve and present the archives. The presentation this morning is somewhat different. The format is slightly different in that we'll have 3 speakers. That doesn't mean additions. They're well integrated from one subject to another to explain the various aspects and goals of the Greenwich Historical Society. The first speaker I will introduce, and he subsequently introduced the other 2, who are Debra Mecky and George Packard. Peter Malkin needs no introduction. After having said that, I will give an introduction. But seriously, he is well known to this organization, has made presentations himself on a number of occasions, and as his members of his family, most notably his son-in-law, Senator Blumenthal. Peter is world famous, seriously, in the real estate and development industry. He's the chairman emeritus of the Empire State Realty Trust. He's a graduate both summa cum laude of Harvard College and magna cum laude from Harvard Law School. He's the chairman of the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, Dean's Council. Peter has founded numerous charitable and civic organizations, including the Greenwich Green and Clean. Peter Urey mentioned that a few minutes ago. The Greenwich Tree Conservatory, Greenwich Adopt a Road, the Merritt Parkway Conservatory, the Metropolitan Aircraft Noise Mitigation Committee, and New York City Business Improvement District for Grand Central 34th Street and Fashion Center Partnership, and struck out with me on another noise abatement, namely leaf blowers. So without further ado, it's great personal pleasure I introduce Peter Malkin. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Bob and I have known each other for quite a while. Some of the things we've done have been successful. Leaf blowers, unfortunately, not. But I'm here today because I want you all to know what is going on at the Greenwich Historical Society. As Bob said, it was founded in 1931. In 1957, it acquired what's known as the Bush Holly House, which is the only national registered historic landmark in the town of Greenwich. The campus will be described to you by Debra, Mecky, and David Parker, whom I'll introduce in a minute. Question, why am I here? I'm here not just to introduce them, but also because I have the privilege of chairing a campaign that is now going on that they will tell you about what it's intended to accomplish. Why am I interested in the Greenwich Historical Society? It's a relatively hidden jewel in the crown of the town of Greenwich. It is the only repository of the archives of the town. The history of the town, the history of the region, the history of every important landmark property in town. It conducts a program of landmarking his private residences and commercial buildings of historic importance in our town. It offers wonderful programs, which you will hear about. For those reasons, I'm really interested in and supportive of the society. There's another very important reason. My bride, Isabel, who's sitting behind the projector, is the longest-serving member of the Board of Trustees of the Greenwich Historical Society, and clearly Pillow Talk has an influence. What I would like to stress is you'll hear a lot about the plans and the project that we're doing, and the fact that it's for real. The progress we've made in funding it, the fact that we've actually broken ground already on the program, and the fact that it's going to be able to afford a great enhancement to the services that it provides to the town. I see our first selectman, Rebecca Breed, just walked in, and the services particularly to a segment of the community which is not sufficiently recognized, and that is that we have 3 Title I elementary schools and 1 Title I junior high school in our town. And Title I means that a majority of the students are from families or single parents who are below the poverty level set by the federal government, so that they receive free food at school and other federal assistance programs. And not very many people in the rest of Greenwich recognize that this exists. And this is a very important area of service by the Greenwich Historical Society, supplementing the educational programs that are offered at the Hamilton Avenue School, and that we hope will be able to be extended to the New Lebanon and Julian Curtis schools when we successfully conclude our campaign. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our 2 primary speakers, and then I will come back later on to help answer questions and to tell a little bit more. Debra Mecky is the executive director of the Greenwich Historical Society, and she's now in her 20th year in that capacity. She has a PhD in 19th century studies, and before coming to the Greenwich Historical Society, she served for 11 years as the curator of education and then executive director of the Historical Society of Rockland County. And she's terrific, and she has a wonderful staff, including Michelle, who's making sure that the pictures come up on the screen. The second speaker will be David Scott Parker. David Scott Parker is one of the nation's leading historic preservation architects. He recently completed the historic restoration of the Mark Twain House. Governor Malloy was there to dedicate it a few days ago with David. More importantly to me, he has been the key person assisting the Merritt Parkway Conservancy, which I chair, in making sure that the service areas on the Merritt Parkway were restored and do not look like the service areas on I-95. The I-95 service areas are perfect for that truckla road, but what David did almost single-handedly, he compelled well, I should tell a little bit of the story. The state of Connecticut gave a contract to a group, a private group, to restore and eliminate environmental hazards in the service areas on every state road and every federal road in the state of Connecticut. This was, I think, a wonderful public-private partnership idea. But our concern at the Merritt Parkway Conservancy was that these wonderful little historic buildings on the parkway be restored and that signage be limited and that the special quality of the parkway be preserved. So David, for at least 2 years, worked with the project people so that those little buildings, he got rid of all the plastic, he got rid of all the show windows. He required the buildings to be restored with the original slate on their roofs and the original brickwork. And believe me, this was a huge task. So I have great appreciation to David for doing this. But importantly today, he will tell you about the wonderful design that he has developed. Our chair of the board of the Greenwich Historical Society, Davida Strackbine, has just walked in, and welcome, Davida. So without further ado, I will turn this over to Debra Mecky and then to David Parker, and then I will come back after they have spoken. Thank you very much.
I want to thank Peter Malkin. I'm very honored to have Isabel and your leadership and support during this transformational period at the Greenwich Historical Society. I also thank Bob and the leadership of the RMA for this opportunity to share our plans with you. Yeah, this should work. Yeah. This is our site. You heard a little bit that we relocated here in 1957. The Bush Holly House was saved from I-95 and is a town treasure today. But it was originally a historic house in the 18th century on a busy port and thriving center for the town. On the lower right of the screen is the Bush Holly House, and next to it is the yellow storehouse, which the Historical Society acquired, where we present our changing exhibitions on history and art. And behind them, if you look to the back, are two barn-like buildings that serve as the Greenwich History Archives and the Education Center. Now, with the most recent acquisition of the blue building, the 19th century house on the left of the screen, together with the state's grant of a half-acre of land adjacent to it, all the pieces of the puzzle in our master plan were finally in place to allow the Historical Society to reimagine its campus and study how these new resources could best be used to increase our services to the community. I want to spend a few moments to highlight the many ways the Historical Society currently shares its site and collections with audiences, whether they be children, youth, students, or adult learners. The Historical Society has a wide variety of resources that make its offerings unique. These include the historic landscape, the Bush Holly House and its furnishings, the paintings of the Coscob Art Colony, and the rich archival material used to support research, preservation, exhibitions, public programs, and education. The Bush Holly House has a unique dual interpretation that renders it an educational resource for people of all ages. Built in 1730, you heard it was declared a National Historic Landmark in the 1990s due to its significance as the home of Connecticut's first art colony. Public tours at Bush Holly House, offered 5 days a week throughout the year, begin with a guided walk through the Holly boarding house rooms, where Impressionist artists once lodged. And then the tours move back in time to a turning point in American history, seen through the eyes of the Bush household. Tours of the Bush-era rooms are especially treasured by students, teachers, and families as a local resource for experiencing colonial and early American life, early technologies, and the reality of slavery in coastal Connecticut towns in the 18th and early 19th century. One of our largest target audiences is school-aged children, approximately 6,000, who attend during the school year and for summer camp. While most of them hail from Greenwich, we serve schools in Stamford, Norwalk, Mamaroneck, and Larchmont. Our longest-standing program has been designated as an assured experience for over 20 years by the Greenwich Board of Education in support of the third grade curriculum. It's called Sarah Bush and Her Town. It includes a visit to the classroom by a professional interpreter, who is Sarah, and a tour of the Bush-era rooms, followed by a hands-on workshop exploring colonial artifacts and crafts in the Vanderbilt Education Center's classroom and studio. Now, the Education Center and the Bush Holly House sit 30 feet above the street level, where the school buses park on the street, and wheelchair-bound students or children in strollers are carried by their parents and teachers so that they can participate in all of the activities. Accessibility has often been cited in our surveys of adults and teachers as the #1 barrier to broader participation. In addition to the programs offered to all of our schools, the Historical Society is now in the 9th year of a partnership with Hamilton Avenue School. And as Teeter explained to you, this is one of our town's Title I schools. This is often the first experience these students have had of a museum or a historic site. The Historical Society's professional education curator works with teachers and students in the 1st through 5th grades at Hamilton Avenue to support curriculum goals in social studies and art, including bringing a museum curator and artists into the classroom and the creation of a classroom quilt based on their vision of the Bush Holly House and self-portraits, and concluding every June with a reception and tour for families led by 5th grade junior docents. So by the time these students graduate from the 5th grade, they have had 5 years of exposure and really consider this to be their home. The Historical Society's school and teacher programs are designed to support the Connecticut State curricula for social studies that emphasizes inquiry-based and place-based learning. We want our students to develop a sense of place and connection to the community where they live and go to school. They may not be one of the few remaining 11th generation descendants of Greenwich's founding families, but if they live in Greenwich, its history is now part of their history. Informal community programs are another way in which the Historical Society serves local families. One of our popular family programs on site is a fall scarecrow competition. On Columbus Day weekend, we had over 300 people there on that one day. Free public programs are offered to the community throughout the year. The gallery and the Bush Holly House are open free to the public on the 1st Wednesday of every month. Each June, the Historical Society participates in Connecticut Open House Day, whereby all museums in the state who participate are free to the public. And we also offer a free and very popular open house and candlelight tour during the holiday season. Active participation in the community and civic engagement keeps the Historical Society relevant. We have ongoing relationships with many groups, such as the Greenwich Point Conservancy and the Shellfish Commission, with whom we collaborate each year for Experience the Sound at Greenwich Point. We have established ongoing partnerships with Greenwich Library, the Alliance Française, Penn Women, the Japan Society, and the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County, to name a few. We also sponsor activities of the Greenwich Preservation Network, which we founded, consisting of all the town's preservation groups and officials who have joined together to educate the public about our historic districts and to address the community's concerns about the rapid loss of historic resources. So far, 88 just this year alone, and we haven't even finished the year just yet. For adult learners, the Historical Society features distinguished lectures. At the top left is Pulitzer Prize-winning author Robert Massey. Next to him, award-winning and best-selling author Nathaniel Philbrook. We brought Chief Justice to the U.S. Court of Appeals of the Armed Forces, James E. Baker, and Elizabeth Kornhauser, the Alice Pratt Brown Curator of American Paintings and Sculpture at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Bush Holly House, the site itself, attracts visitors from all over the world due to its exceptional national story as the home of America's earliest art colony, and tours are offered in English and Japanese, thanks to the support of the Greenwich Japanese community. This, by the way, is Child Hassan's pastel of the Holly Farm in 1902, and it's evocative of the charm of Greenwich to the artists at the turn of the 20th century. The house, as you heard, is the town's only National Historic Landmark. It's one of 30 houses on the National Trust's Historic Artists' Homes and Studios program, and we were a founding member of the Connecticut Art Trail. Cos Cob became a mecca for artists when John Twackman and J. Eldon Weir started teaching summer classes in the 1890s. And you can see here the students and artists setting up their easels on the Cos Cob landing. The early leaders of the American Impressionist movement are associated with the house, as well as progressive era writers like Lincoln Steffens and Willa Cather. The story of these artists and writers and their art is so important and so rich that it makes the site worthy of being a regional destination. Increasing our capacity to interpret this story and showcase the artist's work is an essential part of our plan to reimagine the campus. Works by 17 of these artists are currently in the Historical Society's collections, and we strive to build and showcase a more representative collection of the 85 artists who worked in Greenwich during this innovative period that witnessed the evolution from Impressionism to modernism in American art. The Historical Society's permanent collections of art and three-dimensional objects has grown substantially since the acquisition and furnishing of Bush Holly House. And many of these collections are stored in off-site facilities, or they are rotated through special exhibitions in our storehouse gallery, such as this one pictured here, which was an exhibition on the Gilded Age in Greenwich. Now, the storehouse gallery that we use for this purpose was designed as a warehouse for produce unloaded for the docks, and it was never intended as a museum gallery. The ceilings are 8 foot high, making it impossible to properly light the artwork and the displays. It has no airlock or vestibule, and it is divided into small rooms. Our plan to reimagine the campus provides proper space for galleries and public programs to accommodate community groups, regional tours, students, and after-school programs. The Historical Society's archival and research collections are an essential community resource. These collections are used by scholars and students, realtors and residents, genealogists and writers. We just had a group of Greenwich teachers, high school teachers, in for a workshop to really learn what's in the primary sources, and this was one of the letters that we pulled out for them. They were just amazed that this was a diary from during World War I of a young woman who speaks about witnessing the day that they learned that Colonel Bowling had been killed and the reaction of his wife at that time. So these are very, very personal, intimate moments in our history that really strike at the heart of making history real to students. Now, these collections are made accessible in a reading room that has become almost unusable due to the new collections coming in for cataloging and treatment. The archival collections on architecture and homes are the most frequently used portion of the collections. And we also then digitize our collections. We have a new collections portal. Eventually that will have 40,000 images on it. We now have an average of 300 visitors per month that actually come via the internet and use the digital portal to help themselves to our collections. We've been out of space to add new collections for 5 years and have moved essential resources our audiences want to see to off-site storage facilities. So we undertook a thorough analysis of the linear feet of the current collections and determined that we exceed our capacity to properly house or grow the research collections where they are most accessible to our researchers and students. The fastest growing area of the collections is not colonial history. It's 20th century history, when the town saw its most rapid population growth. It's a period of increasing interest to scholars and to our high schools. We need a facility that can provide compact, movable storage units that will reduce significantly the square footage needed to house our collections and the cost to maintain them in secure humidity and temperature controlled environments. But if we want to provide powerful personal encounters with Greenwich history and this national treasure, we have to fix a few things that are barriers to our success. And I can show you here on the screen a number of items that I'm sure you've encountered if you've been a recent visitor to the Bush Holly site. In conjunction with physical improvements, we want to plan for a fund that would allow us to develop education programs and services to encourage greater visitation and increased participation in our 4 core program areas that we've been speaking about today. So circling back to the beginning of my part of the presentation with this image of our campus today, the board identified the programmatic goals for our expansion to make the site more accessible to everyone, to significantly increase our services to the community through program expansion and enrichment, to improve the facilities for collections and exhibitions on Greenwich history, and to restore the site's significance as a place of creativity and home for artists. Now, to develop our plan, we, as you heard, turned to award-winning preservation architect David Scott Parker, and we are just going to move directly into his part of our presentation. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Debra, and many thanks to all of you for letting us share our vision for Greenwich Historical Society's future. The Society, as Debra mentioned, currently operates out of 4 separate structures, each of which serves a different purpose in addressing the Society's mission and goals. Historically, this dispersion of activities in small residential structures on the steeply sloped hillside site has proven difficult, not just for accessibility, which of course is a very big concern, and many of you, I'm sure, have been there, and if you've been there in snow or sleet or rain, trying to go up those steps, that's something that we've all encountered, and something that we were asked to address. But the other challenges posed by the terrain and by the existing structures also relate to hosting activities on the site. It has to do with the complications of internal operations for the Society, and also the constraints of the low ceilings and of climate control facilities, not to mention the lack of adequate storage for the archival and other collections. The recently acquired building that you can see on the left-hand side of the site will enable, through its restoration and revitalization, the Society to address some of these concerns. In 2013, my firm was engaged to do an historic structures report on this building. An historic structures report essentially looks at all documentary material on a building and then correlates that with the physical remains that survive. And then this culminated in the production of a more than 100-page book on this building. And through that, we learned that this building, 47 Strickland Road, actually goes back to the to early in the 19th century, around 1805. But its most important period was, and if you look at the slide, you can see this is the same building, believe it or not. And that the building acquired this appearance in the mid-19th century, in 1854. The railroad, by the way, had just arrived in Greenwich, bringing people out from New York City to the bucolic countryside. And it was the advent of the railroad in 1848 that precipitated the transformation of this building in 1854 as the Railroad House Hotel, a place for New Yorkers to come stay as they were coming out from the city. This is our rendering of how the building can be restored to fulfill the future, part of the future goals and objectives of the Society. Today, the lower level of that building exists as a 3-car garage. However, in its prime, this was a saloon. It was a gathering spot for people on lower landing in Coscop. And this area was a vibrant community center at that time. And fortunately for us and for the community, this was documented, and not just documented in photographs. And by the way, this is our rendering of how it will appear when restored. But it was also documented by the artists who came here as part of the Coscop Art Colony. And this particular engraving was done by the master of American Impressionism, Charles Hassam, who did this view of Toby's. Toby was the tavern keeper who operated the facility here. And this was an interesting time in the history of the United States. It was, as I'm sure you all know, this print was done in 1915. As you all know, that was right before the onset of Prohibition. So it was a lively time, and by the way, the artist who did that engraving, Charles Hassam, found his muse in the tavern owner's daughter, Helen, who posed over and over and over again for Charles Hassan and appears in some of his most celebrated artworks, which are, by the way, in some of our most celebrated museums across the country. And so these works were produced here, depicting people here by people who came and stayed here. And this was the beginning of Impressionism in the United States. Here we see the tavern owner's daughter, Helen, in a photograph. And here she poses in front of the south side of 47 Strickland Road, AKA Toby's Tavern. And it's documents like this, and this we found, we discovered in the Society's archives, it's documents like this that will enable us to accurately restore this building to its appearance that it had in the late 19th century throughout the Coscop art colony. And if you look at this view and then the next view, that's our, we actually worked back from the perspective and recreated the perspective on the computer, and we know exactly how many clapboards there were, we know exactly what moldings were on this building. And so all of these documents have been studied very carefully and will enable the building to be restored accurately. There were, in the late 19th century, agrarian buildings clustered at the rear of the structure. And although those are gone, the notion that there were various agricultural and barn-like structures was the inspiration for a way to expand this building and provide the needed space the society needed. For its institutional uses. Most of those barn-like structures were destroyed with the construction of I-95. This is the foundation, or parts of the foundation, of another of them that actually burned in 1930. In the distance behind, you see the archive building. And by the way, this building that Debra referred to earlier was built in 1987 and has served the Society well for the last 30 years, but the Society has the archives has completely outgrown this building that was built to the state of the art at that time. However, we studied it very carefully, and I'll explain in a minute the conclusion of that. So here, a bird's eye view of the Society's campus. You see the corner of I-95 here in the front right, and here the blue building, 47 Strickland Road. And that of course was Toby's. But Toby's is, however, one part of a larger master plan to address the Society's functional and aspirational, functional needs and aspirational goals. So the proposal is to construct barn-like structures that are contiguous with Toby's, and then another very important part of the Society's master plan is parking. The Society currently has 22 parking spaces. We will be more than double the parking at the Society with a total, after this is done, of 48 spaces. And the current parking lot, which is under I-95, you see here, the expansion of the lot, you go up a slight hill, and you actually will enter this building at grade. And that's very important because, as Debra mentioned earlier, the Society, from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill, is a 30-foot rise in elevation. And so by actually being able to drive up to the front door and enter at this building at grade, it eliminates the need to go up treacherous steps. And then with the installation of one elevator in this new building, it not only makes the building makes the building accessible, but makes the site itself accessible. So it's solving many of the challenges that were posed by the existing terrain. I'm very pleased to say that construction has begun, and this photo was taken yesterday on the site. So we're very current here. I'm also very pleased to say that in less than 2 years from today, this same view will look like this. And so this, the new building will not only provide for the institutional space requirements of the society, but it will also create a portal, a point of entry, not just to this building, but to the entire site. And all of you, of course, know Greenwich very well, but for the visitors who come from other places, there's always been a question, where do I go? Where's the front door? Am I there? That question will now be answered quite clearly. And when you walk in the front door, you will be greeted by a receptionist who will not only be greeting you, but also serves as the receptionist for the entire society. And the offices for the society will be in the yellow building, which is now the storehouse beyond. So this is one point of control, one point of entry. In the distance behind, you can see the gift shop. Beyond that, a small cafe. And so the lobby is, as I said, a portal framing views of the site, but it also is a place for receptions, for openings of, for example, art exhibitions, overlooking a small courtyard. And here you can see the windows of the new archive reading room. Here we are in the archives reading room, a place for researchers. And adjacent to that, and this is a floor plan, and normally I don't show floor plans in meetings like this because they're hard to read, but I wanted to share with you, and the reason it's so colorful is to underscore the amount of analyses and studies that really preceded the creation of this plan, because not only did we look at the society's spatial needs as they were outlined, but we also actually went through and calculated exactly how many linear feet of different kinds of shelving were needed for all of the collections in the archives. And then we took that number, and the society asked that we provide 1.5 times that for storage, for future growth. And I'm pleased to report that not only are we at 1.5, but in all categories we're at least at 1.67, and in many of them we are almost up to 2 times the collections of the societies to allow for future growth. So so that's what the different colors are. This is movable shelving, the type that Debra talked about earlier, which is a very efficient way of housing collections. And here is the reading room, which overlooks the courtyard. And of course, movable shelving eliminates the need for multiple aisle space. If you turn to the left after you enter the front door, this, by the way, is where tours will all begin. Here you see the school teacher gesturing out to the courtyard, and in the distance beyond you see 2 galleries. This is the concourse that leads to the stair going up to the galleries, and also the elevator that I referenced earlier that makes the entire site accessible. Proceeding upstairs, there are both the so-called flex gallery, which provides not 8-foot high ceilings, but 12-foot high ceilings, so that exhibitions can be mounted and lit properly. And the space can be used, as shown here, for history exhibits. It will also be well suited and will have climate control capacity for loan exhibits of art as well. This flex gallery is connected by a glassed-in breezeway space to what we refer to as the permanent or orientation gallery. And that space, there will be, here you see the lights dimming, an AV presentation that talks about the history of the site and the Bush Holly site and of Impressionism in America, highlights art from the collection, and then at the end of the show, voila, the panel opens and you see the iconic view that the painters painted and that made Bush Holly so famous as the beginning of Impressionism in America. At the end of that orientation, you can exit the rear of the structure at grade, walking directly over to the Bush Holly House or up through the Grape Arbor to the Education Center, which is a period barn that's always been there. If you go to the rear corner of the property today, this is the view that you would have. And you see Bush Holly House in the center. The large structure here is the current archives building. There was no building there before that was built in 1987, and that was garden throughout the 18th and 19th century. And so one of the goals that we were asked to also try to address was to create open space for the Society's various events, including Fall Festival, and so we looked at the historic layout of the property where structures had been and where open space had been, and so I'm pleased to say that while we looked at the possibility of expanding the existing archives building, built in 1987, we did many detailed cost analyses of it, and it was actually less costly by about $2 million to house the collections in the new state-of-the-art facility with compact shelving, and by creating a new structure, it means that the existing archives building can remain fully functional until the new structure is completed, at which time the collections move over without any interruption in service, and this building will come down, and the original garden space will be restored. Oops, let me just... and opening up the space for the various uses of the society with green space. And there will be, in an area where we're required to have 44% green space, I'm pleased to say that we will have 66% green space. So coming back to where we started, this is the view of the Greenwich Historical Society today. This is it 2 years from today. Thank you.
Thank you, Debra and David. And just to tell you a little bit on chairs, if you don't have, look for other seats. There's an envelope, and in the envelope is a book, and in the book is a story about the Greenwich Historical Society's campaign and renderings of all of the things that David has shown you and more. Just to make sure everybody knows, the Historical Society is in Coscob on Strickland Road, which is, if you go on East Putnam Avenue and you get to CVS, you take a right and you're on Strickland Road, and that is an historic district with ship captain houses leading up to the site of the Historical Society. The Historical Society campus will have the Toby's Tavern. It will have the new building with the archives reading room, and the 2 galleries. It will have the storehouse, which is the building in between Toby's Tavern and the Bush Holly House, which will become the office working area for the Society. The Bush Holly House, which is a wonderful building. If you haven't been there, you should be there, certainly after we get the handicap access done, where you can roll in, you can walk in, or you can be wheeled in, and you'll be able to see the whole campus. And half of the building is designed and furnished as it was in colonial days, including, to the surprise of many people in Greenwich, in the attic, the slave quarters, which existed in Greenwich in the 19th century. And the other half of the building is in the design and style of the Impressionist movement. And in that part of the building are the paintings, or some of the paintings, that were done by Childe Hassam and Twachtman and Weir, who were the top Impressionist painters in America. So Greenwich is really, it's a unique location, it's a unique building. It's both an historic house, and it's also a recognized museum, which is very rare to have both in the same building. How are we going to do all of this? Well, we have a campaign. The campaign is to do the basic physical changes, is $13.5 million, and I'm happy to say we're now at $11 million towards that. We're also working to enhance the endowment of the society, which is now approximately $3 million, by adding an additional $5 million so that it will be 4 times approximately the annual budget, which is generally felt to be the right amount. We have initial gifts of $500,000 towards that $5 million. So we need to raise an additional $2.5 million to get $13.5 million for the project. Happily, we have anonymous donors who are matching dollar for dollar the project cost. So we actually have to raise only $1,250,000 from the community. It will be matched to bring us up to the 13.5. And then we have the endowment campaign, and we will feature planned giving, which will permit the endowment to grow over a period of years through legacies, through tax benefit charitable trusts, which have great advantages for the donors. We're well underway. You saw that first picture. One of the happy things I can report is that the actual cost for the parking area came in at 20% below budget and ahead of schedule. We are actually moving forward with the project. We are about a year ahead of the original schedule. The town has been enormously supportive. The honorary co-chairs of the campaign are Peter Tessie and his wife, Scott France and his wife, and Richard Blumenthal and his wife, our daughter. So that we have Democrats and Republicans twice in Democrat, and we have really a representation of the leadership of the town reflecting the town's awareness of the importance of this project. And I would like to say that we have had wonderful cooperation from the town. We really had an expedited approval process. We have gotten all of our permits that we need. We will plan to start construction of the new building in March of next year, and to finish the construction towards the middle, a little later in 2018. So that's a full year ahead of what we thought would be required. So we want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to discuss this with you. We hope that you will take the envelope and the book with you and study it. And now Debra, David, and I are available to answer whatever questions you may have. And I see, thank you.
Wait a second.
Our first question, sir.
Just to testify how valuable an asset it is, I had to do some research on the community in which I live, and I found photos and written material from the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century, which were extremely valuable. The community owes you and your colleagues a tremendous thanks for doing this, so just thank you very much. And I have 2 simple questions. One, do you foresee reinstituting the historical garden that has been there? And I know it's no longer in place, but will you replace that garden? You do have some area for it.
The answer quickly to that is that the garden will be restored. It is actually partially there right now. It'll go back to the way it was in mid-19th century and earlier.
Yes. Once the current archives building is removed, because it stands in part of the garden now, the entire garden can be restored.
Thank you. The other question may be a little more complicated. As you well know, many houses throughout Greenwich that have historical significance have been disappearing. I just wondered if the society is actively involved in the process of advocacy or in any other way to try to help restore those buildings that are being torn down, seems with impunity.
Thank you for that question. As many of you know, for many years we've plaqued houses as landmark buildings, but that does not save them. And so in response to the demolition of buildings, we formed this preservation network, and we receive notices of when houses are going to be demolished that are more than 50 years old. This is a group that reviews what can be done, tries to come up with strategies to save them, tries to convince an owner, if possible, to add to the back of a building or, rather than tear it down. But it's an uphill battle. It's private property, and unless we can get the goodwill of the owners, there's not a lot we can do. We're also working with the town on regulations to see if there can be more incentives put in place to people that do preserve properties. So there's a lot of activity going on, but it is a community concern.
My understanding is that with landmark buildings, if a concern is expressed to someone who's planning demolition, there is the provision for a 90-day delay of the demolition, which the society really gets involved in. And during that 90 days, an effort is made to find an alternative use or an alternative buyer or an opportunity to do a restoration and enhancement of the property. That's the limit of our legal abilities at this time.
We met with the tax assessor to discuss the issue of can there be tax incentives. There are very few examples of that in the country and that are successful, and it's probably even a harder uphill battle in Greenwich. So tax incentives are not in our prospective list of things that will have a high possibility of being passed in Greenwich.
There are some federal programs, maybe you could describe that, but there are federal programs that if you restore an historic building that meets certain categories or criteria, there can be a tax credit which can be either used or sold to someone to help finance the project. But unfortunately, as I understand it, these don't apply to private houses. They're only for commercial structures. And it would be wonderful if the town of Greenwich would have a program which would say that if a truly valuable historic building were preserved, part of the cost of that preservation could be offset by a real estate tax credit or an exemption, which would ease the cost of maintaining the historic building.
We do have historic overlay in Greenwich, so that if you, as an owner of a historic building, save it, you can work with the town to get extra privileges, a little bit more square footage, a little bit more parking space, other things, and it's a deal that's sort of made. So an easement goes on your property. You can never, once you do that, you can never tear that building down, but you do get, there are some incentives in that regard.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation.
Our doctor.
I was just wondering, have any relics been uncovered thus far with the excavation, or do you anticipate anything?
Well, you might be surprised that we're digging behind a tavern and we're finding a lot of bottles, including a stash that was under the staircase in the house. During Prohibition, I think there was a lot going on there.
One of the things that David mentioned briefly, unfortunately, there's a wonderful story actually. When I-95 was planned, it was going to go right through these buildings. And Claire Vanderbilt, who at that time was really not only the leader, but the major underwriter of the Historical Society, spoke to her buddy John Lodge, and the road was curved around the Historical Society. So it's something the Republicans did for our town. And when I-95 was built, though, there was extensive demolition impinging on this site. So one of the things that was a benefit of that is as we dug out the area that will be the parking lot that will go increase from 22 to 48 spaces and be at the level for handicap access, there was virtually no rock, which one would expect the rock ledge to be there. But the state of Connecticut Department of Transportation apparently blasted it all out so that we had a much simpler, faster, and less expensive job than was anticipated. But the reason I bring this up is that there was very little left after the DOT did its demolition. So There are partial foundations of the barns that have not been there for many, many years, and some of the foundation stones and everything are actually being preserved as part of the project.
I have a question back here. Across the street from the Bush Holly and from the house that you just bought, there's a park area there. Are you going to disturb that area at all,
Well,
or anything?
this is an area that, first of all, those of you who get to the Historical Society will notice the traffic triangle, which is planted beautifully by the Historical Society,
Yes.
and across from that, really under I-95, which was, you look down from that into what's unfortunately rather silted up area of what was the harbor. And that property is owned by the state of Connecticut and under the control of the DOT, so the Department of Transportation. So really, we cannot do anything there without the approval of the Department of Transportation. And hopefully when this project is completed, the DOT will be pleased enough to cooperate with us and see what can be done for that.
I just want to say, because I've had many meetings with the COSCOB community, as we move through this project, and yes, the community is very for keeping the waterfront open and free, and we are not putting parking over on that side of the street. The idea is people walk to the train station up that sidewalk, they fish off the landing, it connects to the new COSCOB Park. So we're very aware, our goal is to really enhance and beautify the area and as much of the waterfront as we can preserve, given that it's the railroad and
I think
I-95.
in short answer, there's nothing in this project that will in
Yeah.
any way interfere
No.
with that use of the land. Okay.
What provisions have been made for the elevation of water that's predicted in the area?
Yes, the Toby's, the blue building, is in the floodplain, and so that was very much a consideration in all of the work that we're doing there. The fact that it's in the floodplain means that the basement level, effectively, of that building, which is where the garages are now, cannot be quote-unquote habitable. And various people have said, well, why don't you restore Toby's? And some people have said, why don't you have a tavern there? But the answer to that is that we're not allowed to physically use that space. But if you recall, well, you can't really see it there, but there were 2 bay windows down at that tavern level, and those will have exhibits inside of them. So you will be outside, peering in, and actually we've been working with the exhibit designers, because we're not just doing the building, by the way. The exhibits are very much a part of this project as well, and it's been a very exciting part of it. And so that is what you'll see at the lower level. There will be no mechanical equipment below the floodplain level in the building, so the water will be able to come in and go back out.
Actually, it'll be designed so water can go in and come out, and that's something that's been done in many houses on the waterfront and in Long Island and so on. So there'll be a flow in and a flow out, and it will be preserved. One of the things that should be mentioned is that in Toby's there will be a cafe, a simple cafe, but it will be facing the waterfront. There'll be where the terrace is and inside of there, so that people who visit could sit, have a simple lunch and coffee or whatever else. No liquor, but Toby would be disappointed. Yes, sir.
Too bad the saloon isn't coming back. But that wasn't my question. I saw that Debra had some children in her slides that she was showing, and I wondered, I know that civic studies aren't taught in the schools the way they were taught years ago. And I wondered if that may be a subject for young children to be exposed to, especially voting, if that's something that you'd consider.
So one thing I do want to say about that is that when the core curriculum came through nationally and Connecticut began to work on its own adoption of the core curriculum, They kept the social studies and local history component in the Connecticut state curriculum, and that's not typical of a lot of other states. So we're very fortunate in that the Connecticut is supporting the continued use of historic sites, historic resources to teach history. To your point about civic lessons, we try to use the resources that we have currently to teach civic lessons. One, for example, that we do is a debate, and it's for 5th grade and up, and it's called Patriots versus Loyalists. And the students are both take sides. They're shown artifacts that support being a loyalist, real artifacts in our collection, because we were a divided community, and artifacts that support being a patriot, and then they have to compose. They're taught how to create a debate, and they actually do debate that, and that's a very effective way of getting the students to realize that, first of all, things that are currently, are not just the way they are. There's a story behind them. There were conflicts in the past. History wasn't. We're living in a very divisive period of time. Try being in here in Greenwich during the Revolutionary War. It was a very divisive time to live. So we try to teach those kind of lessons. But yes, we can work. In terms of learning what our electoral college is and voting, those are programs the Historical Society could work with. We tend to respond to what the teachers tell us that they want.
If I could just add a couple of things, that the teachers from the Greenwich public schools and independent schools come to the Historical Society for courses in teaching history. And we work very closely with the history department of Greenwich High School, and the head of that department is an active participant in the Historical Society. The other thing to mention is in the summer, the campus is used for a summer camp, and a large percentage of the children who come to that are children who are from the western end of town, who have certain subsidies, and it's priced in a way so they can come, they get history lessons, they get art lessons, they get the